welcome to episode 4 of the Bunyip Review. I'm your co-host, James the Bunyip Man Willis. We're here with my co-host, Jonas Garway. How you doing, Jonas?
I promised you I was ready, and when I clean my glasses, that's exactly what I mean. Yeah, I'm good.
Perfect timing. Good.
God, you're so much better looking than me. I need a camera.
Thank you. Yeah, well, it's nothing to do with the camera, I'm afraid.
No, it's the camera.
So today we will be talking about Game of Thrones and One Punch Man, Stardew Valley and Into the Breach, along with a side portion of Wargroove, Tolkien and Avengers Endgame. We will try and stay as spoiler-free as possible with the Game of Thrones and the Avengers Endgame reviews, so don't worry. We normally try and stay spoiler-free anyway, but we will be very careful on those things. I think we might be maybe less spoiler-free on like the early seasons of Game of Thrones. Like we may talk about that very big death in the first season of Game of Thrones. So if you've not watched that at all, maybe go watch the first season before you come and watch this. But we're going to start with talking about some of the reviews we've done in the past, because we've reviewed a fair few things now in our first four episodes. Well, I guess 3 episodes. And at the time when we reviewed some of them, we were partway through some of those things, and I thought that it would be a fun idea to just catch up with some of the stuff we talked about. I know you played a bit more of Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, Jonas. How is it going since then?
Yeah, so the short answer is I got to the final boss, and then I YouTubed all the endings, because the final boss is not like, nice little boss fight that I'm just gonna get good at and win. No, it's like a project. It's like when you plan building a new piece of furniture from scratch, like not even an IKEA flat pack. You have to learn each step bit by bit and you have to fail and fail and fail and fail and fail until you get it right, only to be able to kind of get onto step 2. The boss has 4 phases. He'll kill you in 2 hits almost every single time. He changes up his attack patterns in crazy ways. I realized I'm just a man.
So you've given up on it, but did you enjoy it up until that point, would you say?
10 out of 10.
Okay, good.
Would die like 100 times again.
Fucking masochist.
It's such a punishing game, but that's kind of what makes it so good. I'm just trying to make it so my webcam stops freaking out about the light.
Oh, that's fine. This is the time to do it now that we've started.
Absolutely.
And then on my part, I finished Star Trek, the Discovery, the most recent season. And when we talked about it, it was like 2 or 3 episodes from the end, I think.
Yeah, and I've watched quite a bit more of it now, but I haven't finished it.
It's good. I think it was a better ending than season 1. Season 1 sort of felt a bit like, they sort of happily like wrapped everything up, and this time I felt it was a bit more of a satisfying ending. You could see where they want to go with the future of it, and it's definitely, without spoiling anything, it's definitely headed in a direction that I think the fan base wanted it to go from the very beginning, and now it's finally getting to that point. It also had a fantastic battle scene. Like, maybe the graphics weren't as good, but I would say they were going for that Game of Thrones-esque battle in space, and I wouldn't. Okay, wow. I wouldn't say that it is on that level, but for Star Trek it is. For Star Trek, battles don't normally get that big, and it was pretty well done, I think. Anything else you wanted to like talk about that we've reviewed in the past? I don't think there's anything I specifically got that I wanted to revisit yet.
I played a bit more Monster Hunter because of an event. I really want my friends, that includes you, to come play Monster Hunter with me.
When I get the time, I will. I'm a busy man. I've got a lot of commitments. I've got Factorio to play, I've got Stardew to play with Maddie, I've got Sean Bean to kill again this month. Are you telling me we haven't watched Aloha on repeat? Sadly, no. I just haven't had the time to do my monthly Aloha watch these past couple of months.
Yes. Speak for yourself, Jamie. I've got a laptop set up exclusively for having Aloha on repeat.
I like the idea of us like one day if this gets big enough, us like renting out a cinema and watching like the worst movies we watched on the randomizer. So we like watch Aloha on the big screen and Mi Shivarage, Sel Bonsai, Boltoy or whatever.
I mean, have we watched a good film because of this rule yet?
No, that's true, we haven't. But maybe today. All right, well, let's jump into the actual reviews for today then. So this month, it is your turn to go first. And what are you talking about today, Jonas?
I just realised I never set up the right microphone. Anyways,
You sound all right.
yeah, thank you. Sorry. So in TV, right? Correct me.
Yes, we're in
right?
TV.
Cool.
I made a Google Doc.
No,
I made
and
a
you're
Google
right.
Doc just for this.
And you're right, but I just didn't want to assume. Okay, so I'm going to talk about one. I'm going to talk about One Punch Man. One Punch Man is an anime / manga. It's pretty popular and well known. The title kind of says it all. There's this guy. He's super strong. He is so strong that he defeats every opponent he faces in one punch. The anime manga, I'll just keep saying it's an anime. It kind of is designed as like a deconstruction of what is like the shonen battle anime, which classically is, hello, I am a strong man, fight me, I get stronger, you know. And the sort of the tropes that come from a character that gets steadily more powerful as time goes on.
Is
with
this like the
power.
Dragon Ball Z-esque kind of thing?
Yeah, Naruto, Bleach, One Piece, like these are the big shonen animes where friendship and being strong kind of matter more than anything else.
The two most important parts of my life.
Exactly. It's the only thing that keeps me going is being strong and
That's
having
what keeps
friends.
us together, Jonas.
Yeah, we're just so strong, so physically strong,
And so friendly.
Okay, so and in this anime you've got this guy who his name is Saitama, and he used to be like a salary man, like as in he had no strength. This is in a world of superheroes, in a world where people just through hard work and skill can achieve incredible feats of strength and power and skill and magic and whatever. And he is a salary man. He's really bored with his life. He's really quite depressed. And a monster attacks. Monsters commonly attack in this world. A monster attacks, but this monster in particular is looking to hunt down a child that drew on his face while he was sleeping. Okay. And Saitama kind of doesn't care. He just carries on walking. Later, he encounters this monster again, about to kill the child. And through a feat of kind of luck, he manages to defeat the monster by kind of ripping out an eyeball with his tie. But it's a fluke. But from this moment, he kind of feels the calling. So fast forward, all he's done is train. And he's done sit-ups, push-ups, a bit of running every day. He talks about how he managed his diet on a low budget, and he talks about how he managed his aircon and stuff. He's a really mundane man with really mundane details, but he is now literally the strongest man in the world, but nobody knows about him. So the anime is kind of like a comedy that kind of surrounds like this idea that in a world where you have like a class system based on who's the strongest and who's the weakest, in a world where you are kind of like, there is a hero association where being a hero is a job and like full-time employment. You've got this guy who is literally stronger than everybody else can possibly fathom. And he kind of is just this layabout who lives in this random shack, who kind of just, he's bored of fighting. Like no fight excites him anymore because he beats everyone in one punch. And the anime doesn't, it kind of looks at him to begin with, but then it zooms out and it looks at the kind of society around him, the characters that make up the upper echelons of these heroes, the people who are kind of, their lives have like a butterfly effect with what Saitama does. But Saitama is not recognized as a strong man. People recognize other superheroes as S-classes, but not Saitama. And what makes the anime, what the anime kind of does really fantastically is it has this really amazing duality between just taking the piss out of itself and then kind of showing us some like very serious action anime moments. The character Saitama is like super bland in that he's just like this bald-headed, like plain featured. He's an absolutely nobody. He doesn't look like anything. And his superhero costume is like a really awkward yellow jumpsuit with a red cape. In a world of like super stylized people who have like incredible costumes and incredible vibrant looks and like the ability to slice up, you know, buildings in like a second. The anime kind of goes from like this one half of like childlike drawings and really simple, like kind of almost slapstick comedy, just really physical comedy. And then it kind of in the same second snaps to, wait, no, this is a really, really high production, really beautiful looking, really like kind of well thought out action thingy with powerful character moments and really good writing. And it's kind of what's made it one of the more popular animes to date. I talk about it because season 2 has just started up after what I think is a 2 to 3 year wait.
It's only season 2 because I remember I've heard about it a lot. I didn't realize it was only on the second season.
Yeah, so season 1 was great, and it solidified One Punch Man as an anime worth talking about. The manga was good, but the anime is what really took it up there in terms of popularity. Season 2, the studio had a choice between wait longer and get the same quality as season 1, or do it now with a different director and different team who are not as perhaps experienced, and they went for the option 2. So there's a lot of controversy about the style of this season in terms of animation, in terms of there's a lot of still frames, a lot of flapping mouths, you know, not a lot of like actual animation to it, which yeah, I would say 90% of the time this anime doesn't need it. There is a good 10% where when characters do kind of get into the fray, you really want to see that. You really want to see that in a high production.
So would you say it's affected it for you personally as a fan of it?
I notice it. I can really notice it. I try not to think about it. I really, the strength of One Punch Man isn't from the action. I really like the manga. And if you can enjoy like a frame by frame kind of, you know, physical publication like that, the fact that it doesn't animate so well isn't really a problem. It's still got really good like sound design, music, voice acting. The writing's all there. It's like a one-to-one adaptation, so that's not really an issue. But yeah, I think it's an amazing anime. It's written by the same man who wrote Mob Psycho. So Mob Psycho and One Punch Man have the same writer.
Okay.
Although he himself is not a very experienced manga artist.
Right.
So he draws really roughly, like as just sketches, and then another company saw his work and it gets like professionally drawn and published now, which is really great. Yeah, where, you know, in a world where there's a lot of battle anime that takes itself too seriously, One Punch Man is the cure.
So as someone who's not necessarily a fan of anime, like I don't really watch any anime at all, would you say this is a good starting point, or would you have to have a background in this kind of anime to get anything out of it?
I feel like knowing the tropes is kind of what makes this more entertaining.
Right.
Like seeing a gruff, I guess some of the jokes like are really easy. Like seeing a gruff man with a scar down his eye with a deep voice, hiding the fact that he's buying dating sims in a video game store because he's one of the strongest heroes and he doesn't want anyone to know that he's a nerd.
Right, yeah.
It's like, okay, you get that joke, but there are certain elements of it, like just how battles are absolutely played out in a way that you don't expect, and then sometimes how they lean into the trope because they know how to do it well.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't really tell you what you would think of it as a non-anime fan. When it comes to people who don't like anime, I try to just show off highlights.
Yeah.
But there are things in One Punch Man that it's like, me as a fan of anime, I know when it's done well, and One Punch Man does some things really, really well.
I mean, so and we're going to talk about this with Avengers and with Game of Thrones, but there is definitely nowadays a lot of market for things that require a previous commitment. They require prior knowledge to get the most out of where, like in those cases, the most recent iteration. But from the way you're describing it, it sounds like really to get the most out of this, you have to already know the genre quite well.
I mean, honestly, I'm sure someone fresh could go into this and just think it's a hell of a blast. If nothing else, you get an example of what high quality, like what a good anime looks like. Like
Right,
you're not
yeah.
there aren't really any trash episodes or trash moments. The pacing's really good. The writing is just good throughout. If you try and watch one of the more templatey animes, you're more likely to get an equal dose of good and bad.
Right. Yeah.
One Punch Man is just good all the way through.
Oh, cool. All right. Well, if you were to sum it up in one sentence before we move on, what would you say?
One Punch.
Oh, there we go. Perfect. All right. Cool. So we're gonna move on to my TV show for this month, which is Game of Thrones.
Classic.
The
Sorry,
the
I'm gonna
title
keep adjusting my setup. I know.
Okay, good, perfect.
Just moving the light closer because I think
You look fine. You look fine, man. It's all right. So I'm talking. I got in first and got the opportunity to review Game of Thrones this month ahead of Jonas. So I doubt there is anyone in the world, especially no one in this chat here, who doesn't know what Game of Thrones is. It is an international phenomenon that has been going on we're on our 8th season. There's been one a year, or was there a year where we missed one? Maybe.
I feel like we skipped a year.
Yeah, so we're about 9 years in then, I guess. 8 or 9 years in at this point. But as a good reviewer, I will do a bit of a recap about what it's about. It is a fantasy, sort of medieval theme fantasy, sort of political drama set in a world where there's sort of a feudal system in this Isle of Westeros, which looks kind of similar to a sort of badly drawn map of the UK, in which there are 7 kingdoms ruled by a king over the top. And in the first series, the King Robert Baratheon dies, and this ignites a bunch of old rivalries and claims to the throne and all this stuff, and wars ignite all across the continent. There is also the daughter of a previously deposed king who from the Targaryen family, who has been exiled across the sea, and she is looking to reclaim her throne, build an army and sail back to Westeros and reclaim her throne. And she has one of the 2 main obvious fantasy elements, in which she has these dragons that she uses, that are the sort of birthright of her family. And whilst all of this is going on, whilst all of this squabbling and warfare is going on, there is a wall to the north, a great ice wall to the north, that was built long ago before anyone can remember, and supposedly it's to hold out some unknown ancient threat, but no one believes that that's a thing anymore. They just believe it's used to keep out wildlings who live north of the wall. But as the series progresses, you start to find out that maybe this threat is actually real, and that people should be doing something about it instead of squabbling over the Iron Throne. It's based on a popular unfinished novel series by George R.R. Martin, and this is a bit of a sticking point in the community because, as is the case with a lot of anime I hear from various people, fans can get a bit sticky or a bit upset about the idea of a TV show getting ahead of its sort of base writings. And a lot of people have complained that Game of Thrones because George R. R. Martin has taken forever to finish his series, and it doesn't look like he might ever, that Game of Thrones writing has decreased as they moved away from the books. I personally don't think it has. I just think it's different. But anyway, I'll get to that in a bit. So the series, when it came out, it was a boundary breaker. It did things like it was unafraid to kill main characters, which was quite unseen at the time. Nowadays, I think we're quite used to the idea that no one is safe, that the characters could be killed off at any moment in sudden, shocking, dramatic death scenes. But back when Game of Thrones came out, I remember the first time I watched it, I was round your house, Jonas, back when we lived in our hometown of Maidenhead, and your housemate was watching it on TV, and we walked in and we didn't know what it was, and he was just like, yeah, it's Game of Thrones. So the two of us sat down and watched it, and I've watched every episode the day or day after it came out ever since then. And I remember, and this is going to be the one spoiler I give away for this show, but a major character, played by Sean Bean, dies in the first series. And I remember seeing this happen and thinking, well, that can't have actually happened, right? There's got to be some plot reason that he's not actually dead or something. You've killed the only named actor in the show, right? You've killed Sean Bean. I mean, I know he dies in everything, but like, there's still another episode left after this.
Yeah. Too soon.
What happens now? Like, how do you carry on? And they coined, or they maybe not coined, but they brought into the public consciousness this fear of people dying at any moment. And if we fast forward to now, I think that is almost biting them in the arse. In that, in the most recent series, it's come under some complaints for not having as much bite as it used to, or like maybe the writing being a bit lax or something, or being a bit rushed. But I think the problem is that people are struggling to feel that level of shock that they felt when this show was new, and that I think it's doing pretty well in its current season. Particularly one of the things I really like about this current season is that it's been running for so long, and it's been so effective at building up relationships with characters over time, that it's managed to earn the ability to play on nostalgia and to play on those relationships people have with the characters. There's an episode in the current season, episode 2, which is set on the eve of a great battle, and the episode basically just drops in on all the remaining characters and just gives you some conclusions, some progressions of stories and things like that. But the idea that it's just a view of all these people who don't know if they're going to live or die the day after. And I think it was quite a good episode. Some people disagree. Some people say not enough happened. But I think it was a good episode just as an episode, just as like a character study of these people. But having these 8-year relationships with these characters allowed it to be something that basically no other show can have. Like, I guess maybe it could be the closest equivalent, maybe like the last few episodes of some of the Star Trek seasons, or like the last episode of Friends, maybe, that you've been around those characters for so long. Yes, exactly one of those characters. But I think that personally, I think that I think that this season has been a landmark in television. I think that this is something that no other television has achieved, being able to create these long-lasting relationships that adds a layer to this show that I just haven't seen in anything else. I mean, so you've been watching it as well, Jonas. What have you been thinking of the season?
So just as a follow-up point, you're talking about that episode 2 where we're just watching the characters do like the kind of, hey, let's hang out, you know?
Yeah.
that reminds me of you play a lot of RPGs or a lot of like video games in which there's like a party system.
Yeah.
And a lot of games with party systems also have this system where you can you have like a friendship meter. You know, the more you hang out and the more you speak to certain party members, the more you learn about them, the more you learn about their lore, and like the stronger they'll be for you in combat. This episode 2 personified for me the moment in a video game where it says, wait, before you continue through that door, if you continue through that door, there's going to be a boss fight, and you won't be able to come
there's
back.
no going
now.
back. Yeah.
You won't be able to come back and finish your relationships, okay? So why don't you, before you go do the final boss, just tie up all your side quests. Do all your side quests right now. And I just thought, like, that was a fantastic moment.
It's the scene in Witcher 3 where they're all in the castle when they're trying to trap the big bad guy.
Yeah,
it's the campfire stuff in Dragon Age. It's the ship in Mass Effect as you're planning the suicide mission. It's that that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yes, and again, like no show does that so well because no show commits so many hours and more than that, so many years of development. You don't watch no show. Very few shows do you get to watch a young girl grow up to be a woman who then does things that women do and challenges your conception of what you think that character was or is. Like, you know,
and the big thing as well is that the show is so it does actually threaten its cast. It does actually present the possibility that they might not have a happy ending, that it might be that everyone just dies miserably and that's the end of the show at some point. Unlike another show like, say, for example, Friends or Star Trek or some of these shows that run for 25 episode seasons for 7 years or something. Yeah, they've built up these connections with those characters, but you never at any point think, the whole cast will die in the final episode. Like,
the main cast is considered safe in a lot of shows.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's, I mean, even though certain characters are like, oh, they won't, the audience is annoyed that some people do survive and some people don't survive, whatever. The fact is getting that reaction out of the audience is exactly what Game of Thrones was actually always trying to do. It's the writing has always been trying to maybe not subvert, but certainly not play into the established formula.
There's a big thing as well with Game of Thrones. There was an interview with George R. R. Martin where he talked about the idea that he came up with Game of Thrones because he was reading Lord of the Rings, and which is something we'll talk about later when we talk about Tolkien. But he was saying that that once he'd finished it, he thought, well, what happens next? You've killed the big bad guy, but like, how does the government work? What do you do with all the orcs? Like, like what happens then? And Game of Thrones is all about taking those established fantasy tropes and really looking into how they work and what you do with them. So where we're at the story now, we are going into some of this, like, what do you do about a government after a cataclysmic event? But earlier on, it was talking about, like, just because he's a named character doesn't mean he can't die. Like, you were never under any illusions that Aragorn would die in Lord of the Rings, right? Maybe he would die at the end of the last book, but he would not die at the end, like in the middle of the first one, right? Game of Thrones is a story where he very well could, and you no longer feel like that's like they're just safe just because they're a main character, and I love that about it. If I were to, one thing I will say before we sum it up is that for the bad of it, aside from maybe sort of niggling little plot things about things like military strategy and stuff like that, which I would say I think you can give the show a bit of leeway for not showing everything. and for condensing certain things because of the scale of the story they're trying to tell. Some things may irk you, but I think if you take the show as a whole, I think they're minor in terms of that. Starbucks Cups was unforgivable, and I have no fucking idea why that was in there, especially on the budget they have, and someone should be fired for that. Well, actually, they can't be. The show's already over. But anyway, but the other thing I would say is that it had the interesting effect of showing up the fact that streaming television is not up to par after episode 3 of Game of Thrones basically was unwatchable to most people watching on actual official legitimate streaming services because the compression was so overzealous that it was basically a lot of it set at night and it's shot fairly naturally, which meant it was very dark, and compression on streaming services decided that, well, these blacks are pretty much the same, so we'll just make the whole screen black. So it ended up with the odd circumstance that people who had torrented the show actually got a better experience than the people who were watching it legally through Now TV or HBO Go, which was interesting. But anyway, that I think Game of Thrones has always been a trailblazer, and I think that episode in particular may spur people to improve those kind of delivery systems, because it's getting to the point now where people are expecting movie level like innovation in their television, and if TV can't keep up with it, then they're going to be upset. And the two ways that can go is you either stop making Game of Thrones style shows or you fix that pipeline. People made a big deal of the Starbucks Cups, but those things are just bound to happen on large productions. I mean, we're going to talk about Avengers later, and I don't remember seeing any Starbucks Cups in that. So, well, at least if there were, they were meant to be there. Okay, so I would sum it up by saying that Game of Thrones is an undertaking and well worth living through, because it's a brilliant living story that's well told.
Blessed.
#blessed. Okay, so we're going to move on to our video game segment after that. And this month, I always call it week, even though we only do this once a month. This month,
it's also a week. You know,
yeah. This hour. Jonas, what are you talking about this month?
That's right. Trying to see if I can move my microphone somewhere. I'm going to talk about I'm going to talk about a Nintendo Switch game called Into the Breach. Well, it's on PC, Nintendo Switch, and maybe something else. Into the Breach is a game that I've been hearing about for quite a while now. It came out on the PC originally, and when I heard about it, the main thing that stopped me from buying it is it looks like it could be an amazing mobile game. So I was hesitant to get it on the PC. Into the Breach is a turn-based strategy game. You load into a very small map with 3 units. And you have, let's say, 5 or 6 turns until that battle is ended. Each map gives you like some optional objectives, like defend these buildings or destroy this many troops, or sort of do this around the map. But the primary thing is to kind of get in the battle, make sure that as little collateral damage is caused, and then get out. And you're fighting an alien race called the Vec. Now, you'll go into a map with 3 robots, and the robots will have sort of kind of different roles. They're customizable and they can have different weapons, but essentially you'll kind of have like a melee robot, like a robot that just runs in there and does a bit of damage or something. You'll have like a kind of a ranged attacker that generally just does things in like a straight line, kind of like a tank. And you'll have like an artillery unit or something. But where the game gets quite unique is there are multiple different kind of status elements and things that you can do to your opponents. So you can run up to the game starts off by telling you exactly what the enemy is going to do on their turn. First, they move somewhere, and then it tells you what attack they're going to do if they are still alive at the end when you have finished doing your turn. And this sort of opens up this sort of chess mentality where you can see 4 enemies, you can see precisely what they're going to attack, and now it's up to you to decide how you're going to influence that. So the game gives you kind of push and pull mechanics where you can alter the location of an enemy, and it's all on like a grid, like you know what a grid is. Um, you can stop an enemy from attacking if you manage to put them in smoke. You can kill an enemy if you knock them into water and they can't swim or fly. You can set an enemy on fire. You can turn an enemy round so that their attack will hit something else. You can perhaps move the enemy so that you will take the attack instead. You could shield the building. You can electrocute through enemies. You can do all these incredible different things depending on what your units are. But all you know is you've got 1 turn, you've got 3 units, and you need to stop 4 different things from happening on the map. And depending on what your different attacks are, some attacks affect a wide area, some attacks affect a very small area, some attacks do loads of damage, some attacks purely exist to move the placement of enemies. You can see what turn order they're going to do their moves in, and you can see where new enemies are going to spawn from, and you can sort of look around and figure out if the environment's going to help you out. And let's say you survive that battle and you get all your objectives done, great. You get some points that you can later spend for new weapons and upgrades and things. Or you get you can get like better pilots who give passive buffs, or you can get reputation, which you're going to get to trade in for sort of help at the end of the game in the final fight. And other than that, the game is a roguelike. So every time you die, every time you fail, one pilot time travels back into the past, gets into a new team of mechs, and you do it again. And that's all it is you just keep trying and succeeding, or trying and failing. You keep trying out different teams who kind of use different mechanics. So you have a team that focuses on fire, you have a team that focuses on smoke, you have a team that focuses on physically manipulating the enemy space. You've got different ways of doing things every single time. And I finally bought the game, I think last week, and it's all I've been doing with my spare time. I play it on the bus to and from work.
That's a good
I
sign.
play it on my lunch breaks. It's the only thing I've done when I got home today at 4:30 p.m. before starting the podcast with you. And it's just, the design is so fantastic. It's such a well-designed game. And if it helps put things in perspective, it is by the same team who made FTL, Faster Than Light.
Yes, yeah.
Which was like the turn-based, almost like a Star Trek management game where you're managing a spaceship, both in terms of combat and like crew placement and managing your systems and rediverting power to the engine captain, that sort of thing.
I've heard it described as a basically a puzzle game for the way it works. It's quite, yeah.
Yeah. There are very few times in which it feels like the odds were stacked against you. You have a limited number of times you can do a turn, and the number of times, Maddie, you can complete a session in like 10 minutes, but I just keep playing it. That's the thing.
Yeah, time consuming is, I guess, based on how much time you have.
yeah. This is a game that I can pick up and play for as long or as little as I want, and that's why it's such a fantastic game to have handheld, not on the computer.
And I guess that plays into the puzzle game idea of it, in that you could quickly, like you would play like a crossword or something. You could do it for a little bit, or you could do it for as long as you want, kind of thing.
Yeah.
You have a similar level of addicted personality to Jonas. Well, fair enough.
Maddie, you have a similar level of give-uppedness to give up.
Good.
So
very good.
Nailed it. Yeah, so it's a really fantastic game. I'm really glad that I got hands on this just in the last week, because it is just an incredibly polished, well-designed game. that I was just saying you can go back and redo a turn, and it's incredible how much better things can turn out if you just look at it differently. Turns that I thought were absolutely going to be like wreck me because structures were going to take so much damage and enemies had so much health that I didn't know how to get rid of them properly. And then just through some really smart management, I've been able to end turns with like absolutely no sacrifices made. And I'm sometimes just blown away by how the game gave me that opportunity. I just didn't see it the first time. I also just wanted to touch on a game called Wargroove because I bought that at the same time, and it's almost like a reimagining. It's almost like a spiritual successor to Advance Wars, which is an old GBA game. Yeah, where it's like red team versus blue team, turn-based, grid-based combat, in which you spawn units and move them towards the enemy, and different units have different like damage advantages and movement speeds and things like that.
It was sort of like a sort of mobile RTS kind of thing, wasn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. I bought Wargroove, and I haven't played it nearly as much as I played Into the Breach, but I have played a few missions, and I just wanted to say that it looks to be really, really quite promising. Again, there's a lot of polish that's gone into how the game looks and feels.
Yeah.
It's got some really nice voice acting. Like it has a campaign mode with a story. I haven't met nearly enough of the characters yet, I'm sure, but from what I've heard, it is just going to be like a genuinely positive game experience for someone who wants to have like a mobile RTS on their Switch. It's something that I'll jump in between whenever I get frustrated with Into the Breach. I can just get a Wargroove, and etc. But yeah,
sounds like a good subject for a future rewind when you've played a bit more of it. Yeah,
I really want to see how that game opens up, because if it's anything, I've played a lot of Fire Emblem.
Yeah,
and Fire Emblem is a game that just like towards the end, it shows you its hand, and it's incredible what that game does.
Yeah. Okay, so if you were to sum it up Into the Breach in a sentence, how would you do so?
I can't do these things.
You know it's coming at the end of every single one.
I know, but I can never come up with a thing.
This is why you've got to write notes, my friend.
Into the Breach is an incredibly polished and mechanically perfect chess mech puzzle switch game.
Chess mech puzzle switch game. That is my favourite new genre. Brilliant. I love it. Okay, so my game this week is probably as far as you could get away from chess mech battle sim, because mine is a farming sim. I am reviewing Stardew Valley this week because I have played nothing.
Similarities.
I've played nothing new this past month, but what I have done is been convinced by Maddie, who is in our chat, to pick up Stardew Valley again, and I'm actually really enjoying it. What's that? What's this?
I see Maddie.
I see. So I'll talk about Stardew Valley for a bit. So Stardew Valley, if you don't know, is a little pixely farming sim made by a single man. I don't know if he's got more people on his team now, but I remember when it started, it was just sort of a little project for him, and it's turned into a phenomenon. It was sort of based on, what's the name of Harvest Moon, isn't
Harvest
it?
Moon.
Yeah, Harvest Moon. Maybe a little bit of Animal Crossing in there somewhere, and basically it is you are a guy who lives in the city, and you're fed up of your city life, and then your grandfather dies, and he leaves you a farm in a town called Stardew Valley. And so you decide you're going to give up the rat race, and you're going to move into this farm. And when you turn up, it's dilapidated. Like there's nothing there. Just a shitty little house and a bunch of trees. And so you set up shop, and it's your job to deal with the farm. You need to start cutting down trees and planting crops and building up the farm, and that on its own would be quite a fun game, just the maintenance of a farm. But also they add a whole layer of the town. You have characters you can interact with, that you can eventually marry or make friends with. There's a story which takes place over the course of, I know there's at least 3 in-game years of the story, but I don't know if there's more after that. Various things happen, like world events happen, like new areas open up and things. There's a little progression aspect to the game where you collect items from the world and then you complete bundles, and they unlock like new areas or new things you can do and stuff like that. New plot lines for various people. The mechanics are super simple. Basically, you could learn to play the entire game in about 15 minutes, and none of it is particularly complicated. The complexity comes from planning how you're going to do the thing. So, for example, how many crops it's sensible to buy, and time management. Do you have the time to water all of these crops every morning? And then you get things like, later on, you'll get sprinklers, which mean that you can not have to water a certain amount of crops every morning, which means you can build bigger farms that you can harvest more stuff. Or you can be like Maddie and I in our stream, where we bought 300 parsnips, and then every day we woke up, we watered plants until the sun went down, and then we went to bed. We had one of us would be watering plants while the other one would be out fishing for food to keep the water alive, because they were so exhausted from watering plants all day. The plot and all the character interactions are quite pleasant and enjoyable. All the characters are quite friendly folks, or even if they're gruff, you can eventually sort of turn them around. It has a nice, quaint sense of humour and style to it. It's all pixel animation, but everything looks really sort of sweet and sunny and fun, and all the characters are quite cool. Downsides, I would say, is it can get a bit repetitive, and there's certain things that require a lot of manual labour for very small reward. Like, for example, there's a mine that you can go down into, and you can mine ores like iron and gold and silver, and these metals require being put in a furnace to smelt into bars. But you physically have to go and you put it in, and then it will tick over for a while, and then it'll go ding, I'm done. Then you go over, you take one out, and you put it back, put another one in. It sort of works how like the furnaces work in Minecraft, but over a much longer time period depending on the bar. So the gold ones take fucking forever. And that kind of stuff, having played things like Minecraft mod packs with automation and things, and various other games that allow you to like upgrade to the point where you no longer have to be the person shoveling coal and ore into a furnace over and over again. Stardew doesn't give you that, and I know that they're going for the idea of like you're supposed to be sort of living on a farm and maintaining it, and there's like that's part of the routine of it, but it just eventually it becomes tedious. And it is something that you feel you should be able to progress out of. Maddie's right, there are mods that solve that. I have played with them. They are great, but they are mods, and it's really a downside of the game that should be solved within the game. As well, the UI isn't great. It requires a lot of flipping between panels, which to get to information you use very often, which you shouldn't necessarily have to do. For example, if you want to know what goes into one of the bundles, you open your inventory, then you click a bundle button, then you have to find the window, like the specific set of bundles that the thing is in, and then you have to click the bundle. And if you don't know the item, if the item you're holding in your hand goes into any of the bundles, you got to sit clicking in and out of every single bundle on the entire thing. They could do with just a little icon that shows up when you're holding an item that says this is for a bundle, so you don't immediately sell it. That would be a nice little quality of life change, and in the long life of the game that has never been implemented. there's another thing with if you give people gifts and things, there's certain things they like and certain things they don't like. But there's so many items in the game, and there's so many different people that keeping track of who likes what is like, it requires more thought and memory than remembering what your actual real life friends like. And it would be nice to just have some in-game way of keeping track of these things. But despite those things, even if you don't want to engage with the bundles and you don't want to engage with being friends with people in the town, I would say that it is a nice little just time waster. It's nice to maintain a farm and see something grow over time and build up your money and things like that. And it's quite relaxing. It's sort of like a Zen garden style thing. Like, it's like what parents get out of Farmville, except with a more robust experience to it, I'd say. You've played it, haven't you, Jonas?
I have played it for a period of time, totaling 6 hours apparently. Jesus Christ! No, wait, most of that's Ula.
Oh right, okay.
I don't love Stardew Valley. I don't love Minecraft. I don't love games that don't give me a very clear objective,
Right.
and very games that give you like a sort of long-term reward. Like, if you do this thing for a while, eventually it'll pay off, and you'll be able to enjoy that. It's like, no, I kind of like more one-to-one stuff where it's like, I do something, I see the result.
Yeah.
So games where they open up the world to you and they say, look, you can do whatever you want. I say, great. What do you want from me? I'm just looking actually at the Stardew Valley mods, and I think this is a game I could get into with the Stardew Valley anime mods. In which all of the villagers in Stardew Valley get anime portraits.
Great.
Which turn it into a more relatable dating sim.
That sounds absolutely what you should do. Well, the thing is, I get what you're saying about the goal thing. It's a problem I always had with Minecraft, is that if you not having a goal can feel aimless, and like some mod makers have tried to fix this in Minecraft by adding like quest book mods, which I think work quite well. But the game itself doesn't really give you too much direction, which some people like. I do like it sometimes, but sometimes it is nice to have a bit of a direction as well. I think what Stardew does well is that Stardew has this ever-pressing time pressure and things unlocking and changing as that time progresses, and it also sort of concretely says to you, by the 3rd year something will happen. So so you work towards that 3rd year, and you work towards like, oh, I'm going to get the bigger backpack, and I'm gonna farm this type of crop, and I'm going to build a barn, I'm going to get a cow, and I'm going to finish these bundles and things. But also, while you're doing that, oh, the sauna's opened up. Oh, we can get... the bus is working now. Oh, this person's had a birthday or something. And it gives... while it is like a free-form, like, build your farm however you want, there's also, every few days or every couple of weeks, there is something like, why don't you try this? Or, this is happening now. Why don't you get involved in this thing? Which I think helps mitigate that sense of aimlessness.
I think for me, there's this really big element of it where it's like, I go into the game and I do something for a whole day, and I don't really know what I gain from that except some stuff in my inventory. And then later in the game says, Jonas, you should have this, and I go, oh, I didn't know that was a thing. Okay, so what are the prerequisites? And the game goes, well, the prerequisites will take you 6 days, and I go, well, fuck, I just spent 6 days doing literally nothing that builds towards this goal you've just given me. And it kind of feels like a lot of the time I felt like I would put in work to something only to not fully understand the mechanics of the game, so that work was undone quite quickly. But ultimately, it's just a genre that doesn't speak to me. Like, yeah. I know it's a good game. Yes. It's not a game for me.
It is a game. I think it is also a game that plays better on subsequent plays. If you have prior knowledge of how to run the farm, your first few days of running the farm will go better. And so you will get a better start into the game. Like the first time I played, I did bugger all, and then I got partway through the game and I was like, I've done nothing and like everything is broken. And then on the subsequent playing, like, oh, I know I should make friends with someone early on. I know the bundle thing opens after the first week and things like that. And I think it does play better after subsequent plays. Yeah, I think that's my opinion on it. I would say that it is my sort of sum up is that it is a Zen farming simulator, but with enough different things and plot to do that it can keep you entertained outside of just the Zen act of maintaining a farm. Cool. Okay, so we're going to go into films, but before we do that, I'm going to quickly go grab another cup of tea. So we're going to take a short couple of minute break. And then when we come back, we'll be doing Tolkien, Avengers Endgame. We will be talking about the random film we picked last month, which was Live and Let Live, the veganism documentary. And
sure.
And then we'll be picking another random movie. So stay tuned to help us pick that. All right, we will see you in a couple of minutes, everybody. We're back! Hello everybody and welcome back to the Bunyip Review. We're on our film section. So, for this month, Jonas, you're up first. What have you got for us?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about a very little indie student project called Avengers Endgame.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of this before you put it on the doc. So,
well, it's really impressive what this group of students have done. Essentially, they've managed to take little again like a homebrew graphic novel, like a web comic or something called Marvel, and they've managed to turn it into I think 23 films. 22, 23 films,
something like that.
Yeah. So yes, Marvel films, ever since Iron Man 1, or arguably the Incredible Hulk, but let's not talk about that. The Marvel universe has been expanding for a very long time now. Iron Man being how old now? I can't tell you. Point is Avengers Endgame is the incredible build-up of Marvel films that has kind of reached a conclusion, or maybe not a conclusion, but certainly like a payoff.
Iron Man 1 was released in 2008.
2008, so 11 years.
Yeah.
And it's so worth it. It's so good. This is a film that you can only enjoy if you have taken the time to explore, invest yourself, and enjoy the Marvel universe. This game does not open up this Endgame. The film does not start with introductions of characters. It gives you no establishing kind of shots. It tells you nothing about the universe. It goes in and it assumes you know exactly what you signed up for when you watch this film. Especially as it is a continuation of a previous film, Avengers Infinity War. So this is sort of a part 2 to that part 1, but in the grander scheme of things, it's more like part 22 of 22, or whatever it is. Maddie, climax.
Fan service there.
Yeah, there you go.
Just like Avengers, you're doing what the fans wanted.
And it's just, oh my god, it does so many incredible things without even kind of focusing on the fact that this is a payoff to sort of 11 years of cinematic history. As a standalone film, it does this incredible thing which I love. The concept of the film, without I know we're not going to spoil the territory, but they essentially have to plan a heist, and the way that they execute that is so fun, and it's such a Marvel thing to do. It's something that you, previous to now, you think it's something you could only ever pull off in animation or in comic books, because how could you possibly get a production team and a star cast to pull off the things that they do in this film, and have it mean so much, because it has so much history behind it that what the stakes are. You know exactly what all of these characters are signing up to. You know exactly where they've come from, and watching them go through what they go through, whether or not you're invested in the characters, I think it's still an incredible feat of cinema to watch some of the character moments and development that you see in this film happen.
I think it's similar to Game of Thrones in that sense that it's a kind of film that has never existed before, because it is a film that entirely relies on you having seen the previous 21 films or whatever it is, and they do not at any point stop and go, "Oh, are you keeping up?" They just go, "You have to have seen these films, and we have enough trust in you as a viewer that you will have watched all of these films and you will know the backstory to this."
Yeah, to the point that a lot of the one-liner comedy and a lot of the offhand moments are playing off other one-liners and jokes that were established 6 years ago, and it doesn't look at you and say, remember
Yeah.
that reference. It just the Marvel fan base is a passionate one, and one that does not forget. um it's a film that knows its audience incredibly well, and it kind of it leans into that by just doing what it needs to do and doing what it wants to do with no apology and like kind of no hand holding whatsoever. The strengths of the film, I mean, for me, I thought it was like, oh, this is a fun film. Yep, I'm enjoying this film. I'm enjoying this film. Ah, here we go. Now we're going into the big fight. And at that moment, my mouth opened, and I don't think it closed for like the last hour.
It's all of the Avengers films have had a pretty much the same plot, and this film was interesting in that up until the big battle, it had been pretty different. It'd been a pretty like different plot, and then there's a moment, the scene begins where you see a bunch of people turning up on a battlefield, and you go, oh, this is that scene. We're back to standard Avengers fare. It wasn't a bad thing. The scene was fantastic, but it was almost, you'd almost complain about this in any other film by saying, oh, I've seen this 100 times before, apart from the fact that when it did arrive in this film, because having said this is basically a love letter to all of the Avengers films and all of the films in this series before that they've done, when it happened, you were like, oh, finally, yes, this is what Avengers films are. This is the Avengers bit. Like,
yeah, and it's like the dial has never been turned up so high on this like collaborative visual like cinematic fight moment. Like I had my mouth open because of the ways that characters were interacting in this battle environment, in the ways that characters are using their powers to support other characters that you've never been able to see before now. The way that characters are not necessarily bantering, but acknowledging each other in this battlefield in a way that, like, you know, again, like 11 years of this, and you kind of get to see these just like incredible little moments.
It's a big thing with those films that, like, one of the things that Marvel movies do great is every character's personality comes out in the way they fight.
Yeah,
and like,
absolutely.
and it's all about like their powers inform how they move and how they fight. And this scene was, we're going to take all of them, every single bit that you've ever seen, and this is going to be the scene.
And it's absolutely incredible because you've got characters and actors in there who are absolutely top tier in what they do, and you can't, there's kind of no two ways about it, and yet they are only on the screen for 20 seconds and don't get a single line. Why? Because the cue is because wait your turn. Like there's too many incredible actors and characters in this film for every single one of them to get, you know, a slice of the pie or slice of the, you know, whatever. But like the fact is that they are there and you do see them and they do, you know, they have a moment and it's impactful and it's
also the crazy thing about this. The crazy thing about this series is that some of the people who are in this series were no one before this series began. Like you look at Chris Hemsworth, who plays Thor. He was a nobody before Thor. Like there was an article on Reddit the other day that was like it was like the aged like milk subreddit, the things that were like haven't aged well, and it was a newspaper clipping saying studio hires unknowns Chris Hemsworth and whoever it is who plays Loki to lead new Thor movie, and then being like, well, hopefully they won't ruin it, hopefully they can handle the heavy burden that's put on their shoulders. And now you can't imagine anyone else playing that role, and he has more time on screen in that movie than some people who've been in the business for many years and are massively established actors. And like and he was made by this series.
Absolutely. I was just looking at his IMDb, and interestingly, he did play George Kirk in the Star Trek reboot film. But there you go.
Good.
But, as in just before being Thor, actually. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, there is an incredible amount of maybe not history, but legacy behind what this film is. It's not a film that you're ever going to be able to kind of just sit down, watch it by itself, and kind of be like, "Oh, yeah, that was a nice film for me to enjoy." It carries a lot within it, and it expects you to kind of be ready to recognize all of that at a single glance. I think the film emotionally, like it tries to have some emotionally impactful moments. One of them I didn't really flinch at. I was just a bit like, "Oh, that happened, okay." And the other one, it happened, and it was a bit like, "Yep, that makes sense. It's about time."
Some bits were better than others in that area. I think the really enjoyable stuff was everything leading up to the fight. I feel like everything after that was an important closure segment, and it's definitely ending a phase and leading into a new phase kind of thing. But
absolutely. And yeah, like I say, I think that the story did something that only a Marvel film could do, because it had established so much in its history that it essentially sandboxed itself. Like, it gave itself such an incredible amount of room to kind of move around in. And that's exactly what this film does, is it uses what it's already established to create more, without saying kind of,
yes. Well, to avoid us straying into spoiling the film, if we talk any further, give us a one sentence roundup, and then we'll move on to my film.
Wow, what a payoff.
Very good. What a climax.
Yeah, sorry, Maddie. It's a really big climax.
Okay, cool. So now we're moving on to my film this month, which is Tolkien, which came out relatively recently, starring Nicholas Hoult and some other people. This movie is the story of J.R.R. Tolkien's life, who I shouldn't have to say, but for those who don't know, he wrote Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit.
Really?
I know.
Isn't that a spoiler for the film?
Is it? Yeah, I think it does end with him being like, "I'm writing a book." So the film is basically a biography, and it follows him from being a kid, being an orphan, to his adulthood, where he begins writing Lord of the Rings. And the premise is it's sort of trying to catalogue his life and subtly show all of the influences from his life that led up to the moment of him writing the book. And so it is all about like the experiences he had in his love life and with his friends that led to all of the sort of fellowship elements of the Fellowship of the Ring, but also the horrors of war, which famously he has said he didn't think influenced him. But the movie draws a parallel between a lot of the things that happened in his time in World War One and the villains of Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit and everything like that. Personally, I would say that the biography bits of his life, like the story of his romantic life and his friends, were probably the worst bits of the movie. It was fairly dull and cookie cutter. There were things that we checked out the Wikipedia page afterwards, after watching it, to see how much of it was correct, because the film sort of flicks between him being in World War One and going through the trenches trying to find a friend of his, and then flicking back to his story as a child, and then it sort of flicks between the war and him getting to the point where he joins the army, going back in time, forward. Then it culminates in his final experiences in the war, and then it ends with sort of an epilogue of him getting to the point where he writes Lord of the Rings. And the so that he has a footman called Sam, or I guess what are they called, like the guys who used to follow around the officers. They had like a soldier, or it was like a batsman or something.
Squire?
No, there's a knight. They're like batsmen or something. Anyway, yeah. And this soldier was called Sam, and we were like, did he really have a batsman called Sam? Like, because obviously they're trying to draw the parallel. Oh, and there's a moment where like Tolkien can't go any further, and he's like, "Oh, I'll carry you, sir," and things like that. And we looked into it, and actually, not only could we find no evidence that he had a batsman called Sam, but also that there were actual big chunks of his life that they changed to suit the movie. So the movie states that he got married to the love of his life after the war, but in real life he was married before he went to war. And the movie gave me the impression that they had basically sort of taken the biography aspects and just sort of slotted it into a standard camaraderie love plotline. And now knowing that they have actually changed parts of his life makes me feel like that's exactly what they did. That they basically said that there wasn't a huge amount of thought put into that aspect of it. That they had gotten the rights to write a story about his life, and they'd just gone, well, he basically had a love plot with this woman, so should we just do this? Yeah, it's tried and true. We'll do that kind of thing. And also, there weren't any particularly standout performances, which meant that even the cookie cutter stuff, which could be somewhat decent if it was particularly well acted or written, just felt kind of bland. Nicholas Hoult is not a bad actor, but he's not a great actor, and he sort of comes across as a bit wooden. He sort of feels a bit like the discount Benedict Cumberbatch in some ways. The movie does feel like it was written for Cumberbatch, and then he couldn't be hired, and so Nicholas Hoult was hired instead. The kids who play the young versions of them are not particularly great either, and I wouldn't say anyone in particular has a standout performance in the whole film. But it's not offensively bad. It's not at the point where I would walk out. It was enjoyable, if not particularly like interesting overtly interesting. One of the things I really did like about it, in fact, the two things I really did like about it, is that a big chunk of the film is about the idea that language is shaped by cultural history and vice versa. And it talks about him writing the languages of Middle-earth. And a big chunk of the film is about that, and him going to Oxford and wanting to study like ancient languages and writing his own languages. And I think that in a similar way to how the Enigma Code movie, the interesting part of that was the building of the Enigma machine. This should have been more of a thing, this language aspect of it, this like theory and nuance behind what led to the creation of the book, or like the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit. And really it felt like it was sort of taking a back seat, or it was like one of his minor drives, but really he was more interested in banging kind of thing. Like it should have been more of a focus in the film. And the other aspect as well was that there were sort of magical realism aspects to it, where they exemplified certain things that would theoretically be the influences for certain aspects of Lord of the Rings. So, for example, there's a scene where he's laying down in a trench and he's half dead, and a horse jumps over in the mist, and you can just see its black legs going over the top, and the sound of the ring wraiths play from Lord of the Rings and things. But it's subtle enough that it could also be a sound. It could also be a real sound, but you know it from Lord of the Rings kind of thing. There's a moment where the smoke billows up and there's fire through the smoke, and it takes the smoky form of Sauron, but just subtle enough that it's not like Sauron leaning over the battlefield kind of thing. That's the stuff I really liked. The painting World War One as him seeing it through the lens of a fantasy novel, and it felt like there wasn't nearly enough of that, and maybe possibly that was the impetus for making it, but then they also needed a plot to go round it, and so that's where all the love plot stuff came in.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I was ever likely to watch Tolkien. I live here in Oxford, and sort of, a lot of his history does come up with regards to how he studied here, and the other incredibly influential writers
Yeah,
that he formed friendships here. But yeah,
so
the film did look a bit.
This is the interesting thing watching it with my girlfriend, is that she was an Oxford student, and she so she got a lot more out of it, because the scenes that took place in Oxford, she recognised the places. There were scenes where it was about him interacting with tutors in Oxford, and there were very peculiarly Oxford things that happened. So like a tutor would walk across the green, but the students weren't allowed to walk across the green, so Tolkien sort of skirts around the path, but as fast as possible to keep up with the tutor that's walking diagonally across the green. It was a funny moment, and you could gather why it was happening, but specifically to her, she was saying that did I actually change? Oh, I forgot to change the thing to Tolkien. Sorry. Specifically to her, sorry, we finished talking about Avengers. We're talking about Tolkien. Specifically to her, this sort of resonated with her because it was an interesting, like, quirk of being at Oxford University. But yeah, I mean, to me, it felt a bit uninspired. It felt like it could have been better. They could have focused more on the literature stuff, more on the Lord of the Rings stuff, I think. The Odeon website had its aggregate score at 3.5 stars, and I would say that is about right. I think. Yeah.
I'm just unlikely to ever watch it, to be honest.
I would say it's like if you're interested in Tolkien, you can, or like, it's maybe worth it. Maybe not in the cinema. Maybe worth like an evening just sitting down watching it. But otherwise, like, I wouldn't bother with it too much, really.
Yeah, fair enough.
Okay, cool. So that is us for the main bulk of our reviews, and now we're moving on to our random film segment. So, I'll just update the thing. So, every month we do a thing where we have a Netflix random film picker, and we pick a random film with out of the UK Netflix category. Catalogue, and it can be of any score, user rating, it can be of any genre, it can be of any age rating, anything.
I'm tempted to challenge that genre bit now.
So we've had Aloha, which was a comedy, and then we've had
what?
I'm going to have to bring up the actual Google Doc to remind me of what that Bollywood movie was called. It's like Me Shivaraj, Bolsale, Bunyip Review.
oh, I didn't know it had Bunyip Review in the title.
Me Shivaraj, Bolsale, Boltoy. And then this month we watched a film called Live and Let Live, which is a documentary on veganism. But I use documentary quite loosely. It was more of a propaganda film, I would say. I know how I feel about it. How do you feel about it, Jonas? Gut response before we go into actually like talking about it.
Targeted.
Right. Would you say that it has affected your opinion on veganism? You think?
I feel like I'm more aware of it. I have a bit more respect for it, but I mean, ultimately, it has not converted me.
No. Well, so all right, I'll go into what I thought about it. So, on a base level, just mechanically as a film, before I get into any of the content, and I will say this now, I don't really want to get into the politics of being a vegan, because I don't think it matters whether you believe it's right or wrong in the reviewing of this film. I don't want to go, I don't want to say, oh, these people were wrong about this and these people were wrong about that. That doesn't matter. We're reviewing it on as a film in itself, kind of thing. I will say, construction wise, like as a film, it is pretty poorly made. It sort of feels a bit like a student film, but an hour and 20 minutes long, which is way too long for how it should have been. It's poorly edited. There's a shitload of mistakes. There's so many like bad cuts. There's literal like actual fuck ups where like someone will suddenly freeze and then their voice will play over and over the top of them. The actual camera work,
that was weird.
Yeah, the actual camera work itself goes from competent to awful at sort of intervals. Some of the sound is just dreadful, and it just feels like it really felt like someone who was making the film. You know what it felt like, and I'm going to come back to this because there's another reason why it felt like this. But it felt like those sort of documentaries made by conspiracy theorists who they don't really have any experience in film. They're just like, I think I know how a documentary works. I put a camera in front of someone, they talk about it, then that's a documentary, right? And you go, well, I mean,
it's one to one.
It's not one that anyone wants to watch, I don't think. My next note on here is that it is way too long. It has that student film problem of, we've shot all these interviews, so we're going to put them all in. Like, people would repeat points over and over and over again. They had multiple interviewees saying the same thing. It felt less like they were trying to examine or explore the concept of veganism. They literally just seem to want to promote it, which isn't really the purpose of a documentary. A documentary should enlighten you on a subject or explore an idea, and the film really felt mainly like a bunch of people who had very strong opinions that all agreed with each other and wanted to express them. It felt like a promotional video for veganism, really, which is not what a documentary should be. This is another reason why it sort of felt like a conspiracy theory video, in that I'm not saying that their message was wrong, right? Again, I don't really want to get into the politics of whether the message is wrong or right, but they did not have any kind of balance. There were no dissenting opinions in the film. There was no like talking to the meat council or getting their statement or anything like that. There was no investigation in any sense. It was purely hardline, sold vegans like absolutely the utmost of veganism, talking about why you are unethical if you touch an animal, kind of thing. And there's a whole segment about how they're being targeted by the government, and like segments about like the sentience of animals and things. And I'm not saying they're wrong, but what I am saying is if it was given in the same tone as a 9/11 truther documentary or a flat earth documentary. It was not given in the tone of people who were critically examining this idea.
So at one point, the documentary looks at you and it says, "So man, if you went back in time, like 100 years, you'd be like, slavery's okay, yeah?" Because everyone else,
yeah.
Because everyone else thinks, everyone else is like, slavery's okay, yeah. Because back then, black people, well, nothing. They don't mean anything. Well, now it's 2019, and we're eating animals, and we need to look at this in the same way. We need to look at how us humans eating animals is like white people having slaves. Yeah.
This is a thing that comes up at least twice, is the equivalency, but maybe more than that, is the equivalency between slavery and eating animals, which is pretty out there as a as an opinion. And the other one was we don't eat our pets, so why would we eat a pig? Which, okay, right, but I do feel that we as humans can. Anyway, I don't want to get again. I don't want to get into the actual politics of those kind of things, but they do quite out there. Like that. What's the best way to describe it?
What?
I've been listening to a lot of a podcast called Oh No, Ross and Kerry. It was my recommendation for the last month's edition of the Bunyip Review. And what they do is they investigate cults and like things like Scientology and stuff like that. And one of the things that these cults do, and flat Earth documentaries do, and conspiracy theorist documentaries do, and things like that, is that they give you a super overblown comparison and say, well, clearly you agree with this, right? And that moment where they say, well, you remember slavery, right? And we all hate slavery. You gotta hate slavery, right? And you go, well, yeah, I do hate slavery. It's like, I mean, aren't we just enslaving the animals? And you go, sorry, no, what was I agreeing to? No, sorry. It's that, like, there's no, like, critical approach to this. There's no allowing someone to make their own decision. It's just sort of almost bullying you into... like saying, like, if you eat animals, you're basically a Confederate. Like, it's weird, and it's aggressive, and it's like it's not balanced, and it's not a documentary. It's a propaganda film, but poorly made. Like,
yeah.
I think that's my opinion of it. I think that I would say that this film is a film for people who are already vegans or who are basically on their way to becoming vegans and would like all of their own views to be validated. But I do not think it has any kind of critical merit. I don't think it investigates or explores the idea of veganism in any way. And I don't think these people would be willing to have any kind of discussion, which I think is problematic if you're calling yourself documentary. They have a web address at the end of the film, for their movie, and on the actual web page, I found this quite funny, and I think it leads into my idea that it might be a student film. They have, you have the little laurels under, like, you have like this won an award at Sundance, and it has like the laurel, the little leaves kind of thing. They have 5 of those, but the images are really small, so you have to zoom in to tell like what they're for, and they just. All 5 of them name film festivals I have never heard of, and one of them was for coming in 19th, and
I mean it's an achievement.
One of them was for being nominated. The thing is, right, is this is a film school, like a film student technique, which is you enter your film into literally every possible festival you can get it into. And these festivals will take any old film because they're desperate to survive. So coming 19th at a film festival might mean you were one of 19 films.
Yep.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it to anyone. But if you're already a vegan and quite a hardcore vegan, and you believe that, let me see if I can find any of the strange things. I was sending them to someone earlier.
It's a rather interestingly, it has got 7.6 on IMDb, but not as good as Vegan Everyday Stories with an 8.1.
Right, let me see. I've got some fun moments here. One of them was there's a girl who's in it through the whole movie. She's sort of like their go-to for B-roll. Yeah, and at one point she's sat with her parents. And her mum is telling her how they used to be worried about her becoming a vegan, but now have sort of come around to the idea. But the mum is so bad on camera that she looks like she's reading her lines at gunpoint, where she just goes like, when you became a vegan, I was very worried, but now I'm
Oh
okay
God!
with the
And
idea.
her dad looks like he's ready to actually punch one of the cast.
Oh yeah,
Not
yeah,
not
yeah.
sorry, not the cast, the
The crew,
crew,
yeah.
because he doesn't say a word. He's really red in the face, but he's like, "I'm here only because I love my daughter."
I'm here because I am required by the contract.
He fucks. Yeah. Um.
There was also a guy who compared humane slaughterhouses to sneaking into someone's bedroom at night and shooting them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was an interesting
which
one.
that was a pretty out there comparison, I think.
Like, you know, there were certain bits of it where I was like, "Oh, I didn't know that that was an opinion that vegans had. Like, I didn't know that that was a viewpoint that you could have as a vegan." And that made me go, oh, okay, well, yeah, I guess if you have that opinion, I can understand why for you it's absolutely really difficult to eat meat.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
Yeah.
the problem is that the documentary is 2 hours of that, of
There were some
people
people I
giving their just people giving their very personal experience of why I'm a vegan.
So Maddie said hashtag not all vegans, and she's right. There were a couple of people who I
Yeah.
really liked in the documentary. There's a guy in it who I keep calling it a documentary. There was a couple of people I liked in the propaganda film. The guy who had a restaurant, and basically he was working at this. He owned like a French restaurant, and then
Yeah,
he had sort of
yeah.
a moral awakening, and he was like, I can't keep doing this. Like, I don't think it's right for me to serve animals. So he shut down his restaurant and he started a totally vegan restaurant. And he was like, I know where everything I make comes from. I like the entire production chain is cruelty free and everything. And then he talks about other restaurants and he says there's these other restaurants that I really respect. They're not vegan restaurants, but I respect them professionally. And he seemed like a decent, balanced guy. And then there was a segment at the end where they were talking about like the environmental impact, where they were saying like, look, if we didn't have all these animals, we wouldn't need to farm so much crops to keep them alive. We'd actually open up a bunch of space. And I was like, that's actually a pretty great argument. That's actually a really good argument. And then there was the humane slaughterhouse is like sneaking into your bedroom and shooting you. And I was like, fucking hell, like eating animals is like being a slave owner. No, it's not though. Like humans are different.
Yeah. That restaurant owner I liked because he talks very openly and honestly about his experience as a meat eater. And then, he talks very openly and honestly about how his perception changed, and he drastically changed his life in terms of his professional career as a chef to match those beliefs. And I think that just takes an incredible amount of willpower, and it was just fantastic to see that he had managed to pull that off in like a really reasonable and like kind of like personally kind of like smart way, if that makes sense. Like he hadn't just dove deep and thrown his life away and had no money and blamed it all on the meat industry. Like he was really quite respectful about the whole thing. Where was I going? There were quite a few like nutritionists in it, and obviously like I'm a nutrition student. I know that it's nutritionally viable to be vegan.
The nutrition aspect was interesting because so that is something that growing up I heard. Like I had multiple family members that would say like, oh, I've never met a healthy vegetarian and things like that. And I thought that segment on nutrition and them using the professional cyclist as the sort of example case was a good idea. It was basically responding to a major criticism that people have of this kind of lifestyle, except they didn't establish that that was what they were doing. But knowing enough about this in the world, I could read that into. It just went on maybe 3 times as long as it should have done.
I had these real extreme moments where I was just like, oh, this has got to be the last interview, right? And it turns out I was 1/3 of the way through, and I was like, really?
I remember sitting it and thinking, oh, I must be like 3/4 of the way through, and then mousing over it and seeing, oh, I've got an hour left, and going,
Oh
Oh,
god.
I'm only 20 minutes into this movie.
Uh,
Oh my god.
yeah. Okay. I don't. There's nothing to really talk about here. The production is bad. I could tell when the audio quality of someone dropped between two speakers in the same scene, like a man
Hmm.
and a woman, and the man has like audible white noise going on my crap speakers and low volume setup. And the woman sounds like a little bit crisper and clearer.
Well,
And as someone who can at least get rid of white noise in an audio file, I was like,
so
shit.
things I noticed quite regularly were audio wise, they either recorded on shitty mics quite often, or what they would do is they would record in a very noisy environment, and then they would remove. There's like a lot of audio programs like Audition things have a noise reducer.
Yep.
But the problem is, if you set it up wrong, it removes a bunch of the tones from the voice. So
Yes.
some of them sounded like they were talking down a tube or something like that. They always sounded like they were missing the high part of their voice. Visually, like the color grade was all over the fucking place. They would constantly cross the line, which for a brief film tutorial here, but if you shoot and someone is on the left side of the frame, you've got to keep them on the left side of the frame. You can't suddenly flip them to the other side, because otherwise people lose all sense of geography in the room. They did this constantly in every interview. Suddenly they'd be shooting from behind them all over the place. The cameraman looked like he had a fucking limp or something, or couldn't stand up properly, because they would just cut to a second angle of an interview and the guy would be fucking falling over.
Yes. There was one interview where like it's a guy in like a room surrounded by books on a bookshelf, and it's looking at him one very still angle, and then it cuts to a second angle and it looks like someone's holding their phone.
Yeah.
Kind of trying to do like an edgy, like, yeah man, what's your opinion on this?
There's genuinely one where the cameraman looks like he's falling over, because it cuts to the second angle and the guy's talking and the camera goes like just swings over to the side. And they also, these people don't understand the point of B-roll. So the point of B-roll is to make it so that cuts, say you have an interview and someone says something and then they take a pause, or they say something stupid, or they say something, they fuck up or something, and you want to pick up in another place, but you want it to look like it's seamless, like they just talked normally. And say you've got one camera angle, normally you'd cut to the other camera angle, but in the second camera angle the cameraman has fallen over or something like that, which apparently is quite prevalent in this film. What you do is you cover it with some B-roll, so a shot of their hands or something, or a shot of the wilderness behind them, or a shot of a cow or something. They consistently, what they would do is they would have someone talk and then they'd just cut to a totally silent shot of someone sat there, and then they'd cut to the conversation continuing, or they'd have someone sat there and then they'd cut to someone sat in an entirely different position, and then the B-roll would fade up or something, and you just go, these are things that I would see from a bad student film, not from something that supposedly has won awards. Maybe.
Yeah.
Anyway, I
Let's
think.
move on.
Yeah. So, if you'd sum it up in one sentence, Jonas, what would you sum it up as?
No, you attempt
veganism, but fail. Okay, so we're moving on to the moment you've all been waiting for, the random picker. So, what we normally do is we have someone in the audience pick a number between 1 to 8. But the problem with that is that people jump in too quick and they don't have an opportunity. And that means that someone who knows this game already can jump in before everyone else. So what we're going to do this time is I'm going to do the randomization, and then I'm going to give you a set of numbers you've got to pick between. So you can't just jump in ahead because you don't know what numbers you're going to be choosing between. Okay? So you're ready? I'm going to hit the button. The first person to pick a number between 11 and 18, that's the one we're going to do. Someone in chat, pick a number, and if no one does, I'll get judged. Oh, 14. It was Steltec first anyway. Cool. So, sorry, Fleetsy. Steltec got in first.
What have you subjected me to this month?
Sorry, Maddie. So, this will be... Huh? Is that a film?
What?
I think it's given us a TV show, even though I said it's not give us TV shows.
Oh, well, do you want to quickly IMDb or just go to it on Netflix and find out?
Season... No, yeah, so this is Fresh Meat, which is definitely a TV series, so we're not going to do that. So we'll go again.
I was just going to say, it's not going to be another...
Oh my god! Okay, I'm excited.
Oh,
okay,
shit.
so...
Oh.
So... I'll give us movies we could have had before we start, okay? So,
sure.
What we could have had was the Meyerowitz stories, new and selected, which looks like it has Adam Sandler in it.
Meyerowitz.
No, Meyerowitz.
Okay, all I did was I typed MEY.
Anyway, don't worry about it because it's not the film we're doing.
Because we're not going to watch it. Yeah, you're right.
Next was we could have had SwearNet Live. We could have had Nova Inside Einstein's Mind. We could have had After Porn Ends 3.
After Porn.
After Porn Ends 3.
Oh my god.
That could have
been really good.
We could have had Bangkok Love Story.
Yeah.
We could have had The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
I'm alright with that.
We could have had Hostages. But, drum roll please. This month, we will be watching the Arnold Schwarzenegger film, Last Action Hero.
Last Action.
Have you not seen this film?
No, I've not seen Last Action.
It's so good. It's so good. I'm so excited. We finally got a good one.
Okay, wow. Well, 2 hours, 10 minutes, 6.3 on IMDb, 19.3.
It's
okay.
So, I have a special connection with this film because my form tutor at school, the last day of term, when everyone watched films, this is the film he would put on. So I've seen the first half of it like 10 times. I have not seen the second half of it in a very long time. Well, I've not seen any of it in a very long time, but I've seen the second half of it a lot less than I've seen the first half of it. So I'm excited to watch this in its entirety again. Maybe we can meet up and do a screening of it or something, or maybe when I'm in Oxford we can do a screening.
Yeah. If you're so hyped to watch it, then I think watching it with you.
It would be good. So basically, it's an Arnold Schwarzenegger film where a kid goes to a cinema and he goes to see a movie, an Arnold Schwarzenegger action movie. But what he doesn't realise is that his ticket is magic, and he goes into the film and meets Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Spoilers!
Yeah, spoilers for the first 10 minutes of the film. All right, well, that's what we'll be doing next month. Thank you for watching, everybody. This has been episode 4 of the Bunyip Review. We have just enough time for our little recommendations segment. I totally forgot to think of what I was going to recommend. I normally recommend a podcast. Let me have a look at what I've been listening to lately, and I will just quickly grab something. I will recommend... I'll recommend My Brother and Me. If you're into podcasts, you probably know of it already, but it's quite famous. It's an advice show of 3 brothers, and it's sort of abstract and weird. They answer questions from their audience. They answer Yahoo Answers questions. It's just hilarity. Oh well, thank you for saying that, Fleetsy. We do this the first Tuesday of every month, so tune in next Tuesday. Not next Tuesday, next month Tuesday. If you want to see another one of these. Have you got a recommendation before I give away the rest of the schedule for the next couple of weeks?
I do have a recommendation, and I'm just actually trying to quickly find the name of it so I don't get it wrong. So I'm so sorry. I'm just going to stall for time by
while you stall, Story Break is great as well. I've listened to Story Break. Story Break is Freddie Wong and a couple of the other guys, the guys who wrote what's it called? VGHS, Video Game High School, and they come up with plots for films. It's pretty good. Hey Kisley, I'm afraid we're just about to end. You caught us at the end, but rewatch the VOD if you wanna see what we've been up to this evening. It has been a long time. Well, join us on Thursday for more Hitman, but more about that later. What are you looking up, Jonas?
I am trying to find the title of this goddamn Netflix show that Ula got me to watch like 2 or 3 episodes of. It's a really short, funny comedy, but just
what's it about?
So absurd. It's lots of little sketches about just like people in absurd situations. I think it's by the same guys, by like Tim and Eric or something. But I'm just scrolling down Netflix and I'm really struggling to find it. And I'm hoping that someone's going to post it in the chat for me.
I don't think we've got enough information.
Oh, I've really let you down, guys.
All right, well, you keep looking, and I'm going to tell everyone what's coming up. So, this week's a short week for streaming. I'm not here tomorrow, but I will be here on Thursday, killing Sean Bean once again. The Undying is back in Hitman. And then that's it for this week, I'm afraid. But next week, I'll be back on Tuesday. Jonas and I are going to start doing multiplayer games on Tuesdays that we aren't doing this. I'm thinking that maybe next Tuesday we'll do Northgard, maybe.
Yeah, so I have it installed.
So we'll do that.
I sent you a dating sim that I'd like to play with you.
Is it multiplayer?
Yes, the game that I sent you is multiplayer, and it was in the Humble Monthly.
All right, cool. Well, we'll do Northgard next week, and then we'll do that. I know what game that is the week after, and then hopefully next week we'll be back with maybe more Factorio, maybe more Hitman, maybe more Stardew if Maddie's about. All these different things. Curious about what they did with the Undying. How cool would it be if they actually referenced the way you killed them in game? Sadly, Steltec they didn't. But I think he has an eye patch because you can stab him with the pen, so I think they gave him an eye patch or something. But other than that, I don't think it's any different. No dating sim. The partner will kill him. You're gonna kill me in the dating sim, Jonas. Please don't.
I don't know that I can kill you.
But if you can, you will.
I will certainly try.
Right, we got to finish up. Have you found your recommendation finally?
I can't find it. I am really struggling.
All right, we'll save it for next month. Thank you for watching, everybody. It's been lovely to have you. We'll be back with another Bunyip review next month, first Tuesday of every month, and I'll be back on Thursday, potentially with Fairy, to kill Sean Bean. See you then, guys. Thank you for watching.
Bye!